All right, so I want to welcome you guys to yet another episode of FDL Presents the Zach Rushlow podcast. And today's guest is somebody by the name of Simply Mander, also known as Amanda Marie. And she is a YouTuber. She's an Olympic weightlifter in the 53 kilo class. She's a CrossFitter, somebody who's dealt with a lot of digestion issues. And in this podcast, we talk about digestion a lot. And if you've ever dealt with it, how to troubleshoot it. Who do you reach out to? What are the first tests that you do in order to really figure out how to optimize your digestion? That's a huge part of this podcast. So if you've ever struggled with this, you're going to get so much value from this. And also we dive into her nutrition coaching. So she is a nutrition coach for Black Iron Nutrition, which is Chrissy May from Donuts and Deadlifts Company. And Mander is a fellow flexible dieter. And so how do we walk somebody through the process of learning how to track macros, and especially if they are dealing with any type of digestion issue? But before we get into the podcast, please, 5-star reviews you guys are rocking it. We're ranking higher and higher on iTunes. It's helping so much. So I just want to thank you guys so much for doing that. It's greatly appreciated. So if you guys could, if you have yet, go to iTunes, click that 5-star, leave a review. It's literally such a highlight of my day. So I really, really appreciate it if you do that. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, please leave a comment below and let me know who we should interview next. This helps us so much with getting our future guests, because if you guys recommend it, we take note and we make it happen. And lastly, before we begin, I want to thank all of our sponsors, One Bars, Enlightened, and Protein Cookie Company. Let's get into the episode. All right, what's up, my friends? Thank you for tuning in to yet another episode of FDL Presents the Zach Rushlow podcast. And today I have a friend on here that is awesome. I've known her for a good while now. We both love food so much. She is a character, to say the least. She's part of my entertainment during the day. She has a disproportionate love for SpongeBob. It's a love-hate relationship. But today I have on the podcast, you guys probably know her as Simply Mander. Thank you so much, Amanda, for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited, although I cannot understand why you don't love SpongeBob. I mean, you gotta throw that right out there. And the first thing is that SpongeBob.
I know. I just had to go with that because I was a Rocket Power kind of guy. I was a Saved by the Bell, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I know you said that you watch those as well, but my first love was like Kelly Kapowski. So okay, it was weird, enough. But it was weird for me, like the kids growing up that didn't watch that show my age, our age, like they weren't watching those shows. So I'd be like, yeah, you watch Fresh Prince? They're like, nah, I don't. I watch Ed, Ed and Eddie and all those shows.
I didn't like that show.
I didn't either. So, but one question I like to start the podcast with is, so say that we are, somebody's on the Explore page, or that I put you on my story. I'm like, hey, go check out Simply Mander on Instagram. And we live in a society where we don't really use business cards ever. And if you are, you're kind of a loser. Or you just don't understand. So I usually tell people, I was just in San Diego at a business event, and anybody who didn't know who I was would ask me, hey, what do you do? And I said, hey, do you have Instagram? And they'll pull up their Instagram and they'll scroll and be like, oh, cool, I know what you do. So if I were to have somebody stumble upon or check out your Instagram page and they have no idea who you are, what would they know in the first 9 posts that you are about? What do you do? Why would I follow Simply Mander?
This is an awesome question. So in the first 9 posts, I don't even know what my first 9 posts are. If you were to look at my Instagram,
just in general.
But I think that if you went to my page and you looked at it overall, you would instantly know that I love food and I love cooking and creating recipes, much like you, which is how we became connected way back in the day. Just FYI, I was an OG follower, before you became super duper famous. So I just have to throw that out there. I saw you start from the very beginning. I had the very first Flexible Diet Lifestyle book, just saying.
That's crazy.
So we have been friends for quite some time. And I think they would see that I love my dogs. And you mentioned
them on the lips.
Yes, I do kiss them on the lips. Everyone, I get the 50% of people that are like, that's so disgusting. Oh my God. And then the dog parents are like, no, what are you talking about? Like, that's so normal. So they would see that I love food. I love my dogs, both my pit bull rescues. And I think, what you said in the beginning, that I'm a character, I think if they took the time to scroll through some of the things that I write and that I post, they would probably see that as well. I think what I really wanted to do with my Instagram from the beginning was not only document like my personal fitness and nutrition journey over the years, but I also wanted to be different than like your typical Fitspo Instagram, because I saw a lot of the same patterns, a lot of the same things. I felt like everyone was just kind of following this trend, and I just never wanted to like fall in line with that and be just another Instagram girl, because there's more to me than that. And I try to be as positive and motivational, obviously, for people that it can be, but I just wanted to be like different and show people like the real me, and not like only the positives, and show people my failures and my goofy side, and how weird I am. And I think that's what they would notice, that I'm just kind of like a quirky, goofy girl that loves CrossFit and weightlifting and dogs and food.
And that's it. I mean, it's not surface level. So that's the biggest thing and the biggest challenge with Instagram, which can be, if you want it to be, a surface level platform, but then you could go so much deeper if you want to.
For sure.
And that's like one of the things that I've seen with you is you show all, like, you're very dynamic in your personality. So like,
Thanks.
You show all of these things that you do in every aspect of your life, and you're unapologetically yourself.
Yes.
And I think that's so cool, because what's going to happen is you're going to turn off some people, but then you're going to have people that absolutely love you. And that's one thing I've struggled with myself, is because I've always been a people pleaser my whole life. I don't feel like I do anything in life that would make somebody want to hate me. I don't really talk about the things that are like very controversial, because like,
neither do I.
I don't really want to. And so when I get somebody hating on me, it just doesn't sit well, because my intentions are pure, just like yours. I never say anything out of spite to like make somebody mad or to bring them down.
I don't either. Never. I just had this situation happen to me the other day. I have a lot of vegan followers that follow me, and
I saw that.
A lot of people were requesting me to do a more like some plant-based recipes on my channel. And so, I tried to come up with this recipe that I thought was vegan, and one of the ingredients in the mix that I used it was something that wasn't vegan that I didn't know. And so when I was reviewing it and going over it, I asked somebody that was vegan. I was like, hey, is this fully vegan, before I post it to make sure? It turns out it wasn't, but it was almost vegan. Like, it wasn't quite there, but it was almost there, and that's what I called it. I was like, it's an almost vegan recipe, like kind of joking, like, sorry guys, I tried, but I failed. And like, so many people just, got so offended, and they were like, how dare you use a vegan name, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I didn't mean to. I was like, wasn't all the way vegan, but it wasn't a normal recipe. And like, that's what you feel like, my intentions were pure. Like, I tried to do something that I don't typically do. I failed, and then people like chastised me for it. So I was like, oh my God.
And that's what happens. Like, it becomes religion. Like, when food becomes religion, something is wrong. And that's what scares me about like vegan, vegetarian, anything that has the label on top that people can be a tribe behind. Like, it scares me. Like, it scares me when people say that they are flexible dieters, because then that means that you are something. Like, you do something, and that means that there's restraints on there. There's all these different things. Like, I just want people to focus on building the perfect diet for them. Like, and that's just understanding the principles around great nutrition.
Right.
Not saying that you can or cannot have things, but just understand that certain foods you can eat more of, certain foods you do not want to eat more of, but just understanding how all of those play a role in your overall health. Like, that is the most important thing. And then when people try and bring other people down by the weight because of the way they eat, like, that just doesn't make any sense to me. Like,
I know.
like, whoa, like, how does that even, like, we have big problems in this world, and you're going to like cuss at somebody because they did something close to like, it just doesn't make sense to me.
And you know, part of me, like, I didn't even want to argue it and entertain it because I knew it was going to get so much attention. And typically I don't get a lot of hate. I've been very fortunate
Yeah,
over the
me
last
too.
year. I don't usually, and that's, I think, because we don't really go the
You
controversial
put,
route.
yeah, you put out good vibes.
Yeah, I try, you know, and I don't ever want people, like, I never go on there and make posts about like hating people or anything like that, or, you know, get into the things where it could start dividing people that follow me. But there's been, like, recently just some people who I've realized, like, no matter what you do, you're not going to please them anyway. So I've just been like deleting it and moving on. Like, at first I responded and then I was like, you know what, I'm better than that. So I just deleted it. I was like, I'm not dealing with this. So
Absolutely. So that leads me to, okay, so let's kind of talk about you back in the day. So like, let's kind of say, like, I'm always fascinated by, like, the fact is, like, how we see the world is based upon, like, our years 1 to 7. Like,
yes.
When we go deep into where the brain is actually being formed, all of these things, like, it's showing more and more and more subconsciously ages 1 to 7, when your brain is actually growing at its biggest. It's actually like, and it's literally taking shape.
Yeah,
Just like you are the
forming.
human being. Yeah, it's forming. So I mean, obviously 1 to 7 is hard for us to remember, but like, what did your childhood look like? What did you play in many sports? Like, where'd you live? All these different things. Just kind of take us on a little bit of a journey.
Yeah, so actually it's interesting that you bring this up, because as I got into my 20s, I realized that so much of my early childhood days have an impact in my adult brain and how I
Mm.
view things, especially relationship wise. And I never really knew that until I started doing some research on it. So I come from a super big Italian family, but my mom and my dad decided to move down to Florida. And so when I was younger, I spent some of my time growing up in Philly, like the outskirts of Philly where I'm from. But then when we moved down to Florida, I didn't like it. And so I would travel back and forth and spend the summers and the winter breaks and the spring break with my family up in Pennsylvania.
No.
My grandma. And
Hold on,
then,
hold on. Whenever you said you would spend your summers in Pennsylvania, it broke up.
oh, okay. Am I good?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. I spent my summers in Pennsylvania and then, like, my winter breaks and all those kinds of things. And then I would come back down to Florida and be with my mom and my dad. So from, like, I mean, as young as I can remember, I was doing that all the way through, like, middle school and high school even. So I kind of had like a dual upbringing. I was kind of brought up by my aunts and my nana, and then my mom, just mostly my mom in Florida. And so from that time when I was a kid, my parents, they never got along. They did not have a good relationship. I never saw, even to this day, this is something that I still think, like, has some type of emotional connection to me, is that I've never seen a functioning marriage ever in any part of my family. Every single person in my entire family has been divorced. It's always been an unhealthy relationship. So at that point, when I was really young, like you said, from what I can remember, I just did not have a relationship with my father in the sense that most of the other kids did at that young age. He was a pilot. He was an airline pilot, so he wasn't really around anyway because he was always flying. And then for whatever reason, I think mostly just because him and my mom didn't get along, I just didn't have that relationship with him. Like, I was never a daddy's girl. We never did anything. I can't even really remember from those young ages him, like, ever really being there. So when my parents finally got divorced, I guess my dad just decided that he just didn't want anything to do with us, and the divorce was our fault as kids, and we didn't know any better. We were young, and we didn't understand what was going on. So he just kind of abandoned us once they got divorced, and he just completely cut my mom off, completely cut me off and my younger brother. And it just created this very strange dynamic that I remember as a kid. And I've been to therapy for it because, it's just when you're that age and you don't have, like, that strong father figure in your life, it really does affect you more so than at that age. Now I see it, being almost 25, I see that. So I think my childhood definitely was not, family-wise, it wasn't great. But outside of that, I didn't play sports. I was in theater. So that was kind of like my outlet from, I was playing piano since I was like in kindergarten. So I related everything in my life to theater. That was like my thing. I expressed my emotions through theater. I went to theater school. I was in drama in high school. And, my dream was to go to Juilliard. That was like my thing. So I think even though my family life really wasn't good, I was able to, can't think of the word I'm looking for, like turn that into something positive through theater instead of, unfortunately my younger brother went down the road of drugs. And so that was how he dealt with that, I guess. And he had a huge, horrible, horrible teenage years. Meanwhile, I was just in theater. So, I see now how I think not having a relationship with my dad and feeling abandoned as a kid has affected me in my mid-20s. So I'm trying to work on that and learn from that, because there's nothing I could do now. I can't change how I was brought up, but it's interesting.
Well, I mean, the biggest thing is the first step is being aware.
Yeah.
And it's, I know a lot of people listen to this, like they've realized that they listen to this because they want to be a better human being. And that's the premise of the podcast, is we want people to live inspired lives, like 100,000%. Yeah. And one of those things is being aware of the things that actually like affect you. Yeah. And one of those is our childhood. Like I've realized that a lot of people who struggle with anxiety, a lot of people that struggle with mental health, a lot of people that struggle with these things, it's deep rooted in something that happened very, very early on. Yeah. 1 to 7 is usually that golden mark. Mm-hmm. Where something is literally developed in the brain while the brain is developing that shapes the way that you see the world from that moment.
Right. And hey, why do they have to do this when I'm on a podcast? They're coming here with their toys and growling. My therapist at the time had told me that as a young child, you don't know that you're doing this, but subconsciously I was thinking, like, why doesn't my dad love me? Why do we not have a relationship? Why doesn't my dad love my mom? Why do I not see what a healthy marriage looks like? Even though in those terms, that's not how I was explaining it at 7 years old. Mm-hmm. At 25, I'm like, does marriage work? How come can I trust anybody? I've never seen a functioning marriage. I have a lot of trust issues. I have a lot of those deep-rooted anxieties from things. And he says, when you feel at that young age like you can't trust like that father figure or that man figure in your life, you start to build up this wall basically that it translates as you get older, and you don't trust, not men is in all the time, like is it in general, but for the most part, you start to have those deep-rooted feelings like, can I trust men? How my dad abandoned me? Like, is everyone going to abandon me? Just those types of thoughts. And that kind of develops into that like anxiety or sometimes depression for people and things like that. So it's interesting because I never realize until my 20s how much of an effect that had on me, until I started thinking like, really, why did my dad like leave? How do you have children and you just abandon them? And when I was a teenager, it was more like angst, like whatever, I don't need a dad, because you don't know, you're going through puberty and you think you're, you know what I mean? You just think you know everything. And then you get to be like 25 and you're like, but really, why did my dad leave? Like, I joke about it now, but I see in my own relationships and my own anxieties that really had a huge impact on the way that I view relationships and love in general.
It's everything. I mean, serious, like that is, if a lot of people could come to that realization that like, it's okay to struggle with these things. And that like maybe like, and not in the sense of like, maybe your dad was a result of many things that happened to him and the way he did it. And like, you just think we're all just a result of a lot of different things that happened at the perfect time that led us to be where we are. So maybe he struggled with something from age 1 to 7 that allowed him in order to be able to justify doing that.
Right. And I'll never know.
Yeah, and that sucks. Like, I personally, like, I'm blessed to have an amazing parents. Like, whenever I was, and this is a story I haven't really shared much, but when I was in high school, my parents were on the verge of having a divorce. And I remember going and ordering every marriage book I could. And instead of going and partying for a period of time, like I was at that time, like I started reading marriage books and applying them and trying to help my parents stay together. And it worked. And I am so forever grateful for it. But now I am so fascinated by being a great dad, being a great husband in the future, like all these different things. Like those are things that really motivate me. And it's just a fascinating thing because we all have things that we just can't control happen to us.
Right.
But we can control the fact that we are in control
of what we can control, and we can apply that to our own lives. Because I think something that I personally do very well is try not to have, a pity party about it and be like, oh, my dad left us and that's why I can't have good relationships. And it's like, well, I can have good relationships. I just have to learn how to apply what's happened to me in my past and not use it as an excuse, but learn from it. Like you said, you got the marriage books, and I can't even tell you how many books I've read on like anxiety issues or things, where one of your parents has left or something like that. And you just have to apply that going forward instead of dwelling on what you can't change, because nothing I can do is going to change the fact that my childhood already happened and it is what it is. So instead of just sitting here and having a pity party, I'm going to try to use that and, like you said, for me, be a better mom in the future, hopefully be a good wife in the future, and, not do some of those things that I had happen to me as a kid to my future kid.
Yeah. So the biggest thing is not taking it as like, that's just the way it is, but saying that, hey, this is how I didn't want it to be, and I wish it was different. And so I'm going to use that as motivation to be even better. Like my dad was extremely poor. His mom was an alcoholic. His dad left early on, and he told himself that I'm going to sacrifice now to where I can be the best dad ever and not have my kids go through the same thing, which is super cool for me. So thank you for like sharing that. That was awesome. So this kind of segues into, guys, like the fact that just control what you can control. If you've been dealt a bad hand, you make the most of that bad hand, but then also you'll be able to share that and help other people who have been dealt a bad hand. So with you, I know you have a lot of struggles with like food intolerances and digestion, things like that. So I think this kind of segues perfectly into that, because you've been dealt a bad hand with a lot of these things. And just kind of, if you could kind of outline exactly what you go through, and then we can kind of talk about it a little bit, and then just so people can have some context.
Right. So just to make a long story short, back in 2011, I was having a lot of stomach issues that didn't seem normal. And I went to the doctor, referred me to gastro specialist, and he tested me for all kinds of things, came back with H. pylori. The full name of it, I believe, is pronounced Heliobacter pylori or pylori. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. But so basically that type of infection is just a stomach infection that you can get from a lot of different things. You don't really know what you could get it from. And if left untreated, it can create a lot of damage to the lining of your stomach, your digestive enzymes, just basically, if you don't know that you have it and you don't treat it soon enough, or it's left untreated, you get all these types of issues that develop later on. So we're not sure how long that I had that. He thinks based on, I had an endoscopy, and he looked in the lining of my stomach, and he said it was like severely deteriorated. So he wasn't sure how long I had it without being treated. But he did treat it. It was on like hard antibiotics for weeks, and it eventually went away. But then what the gastro that I see now believes is that because of the damage to the lining of my stomach, I don't digest things properly. I don't have those protective digestive enzymes that most people have, or there's some holes in the lining of my stomach that makes it difficult for me to digest specific things like spicy, acidic. Dairy is another thing that irritates me. And it's weird because only full fat dairy, like skim cheeses in small amounts is fine, but not full fat. And anything carbonated, there's like a list of things that just do not work for me. And so he thinks that because of all the issues that I've had in the past, it kind of developed IBS and IBD, which is, I even forget it's irritable bowel syndrome and irritable bowel disease or intestinal bowel disease. I don't even know. I have so many different things with my stomach at this point. I'm like, yeah, just add it on to the list. So I have to take a couple different medications daily in order to keep the acid in my stomach balanced because it's so whack. And then I obviously have to avoid certain foods. And sometimes because the mind and the stomach are so connected, if there is anxiety issues going on in my life, I will have like really bad flare-ups with my stomach. And then I have to take, prescription medicine for that because for what I have, you can only take so much Tums and Pepto. It's a little bit more than that. So it is kind of crappy, but I know at this point after dealing with it for so many years what I can and can't have. So
you're making the most of what you have, the cards you've been dealt. That's the biggest thing. So how common is this? Do you know?
I think IBS is a pretty common, and the thing with IBS is that there's not a specific test for it. They pretty much diagnose people with IBS once they have tested you for a list of other things and that you come back negative for all this other stuff. Then they kind of just say, okay, well, it sounds like you have IBS. There's really no like blood test. The only thing that I knew I had for sure was the bacterial infection, the H. pylori, which then deteriorated my stomach. So the IBD is really more so like the damage to the lining of my stomach that kind of causes IBS. So it's kind of just like a bunch of stuff that they group together, an umbrella,
Well, but it might be intestinal bowel damage.
No, it's disease. There's a disease.
It's disease. Yeah. Okay, I was just thinking like those are those. I tried.
You did good. It's inflammatory bowel disease. I knew there was something different with the eye. That's what it is. When it's so irritated, it becomes your lining of your stomach becomes inflamed because of that. And there's certain things that will cause it and give me flare-ups. But it's crappy. But there's nothing. Again, same situation. There's nothing I can do. It is what it is. I have to take it and do the best I can with it. And I mean, we've talked about things before where I'm like, I can't go out to eat with you. I can't do that because. Yeah. And that sucks because it does alienate me in a sense. And it's hard to be out with a group of people. And in a sense, they do judge me because they're like, why are you not eating a restaurant food? And I'm like, listen, you don't understand. Like, I cannot digest oils and butters. Like, you do not want me to eat this. Even though it might be fun to be part of the social thing, I'm telling you, you don't want me to eat this right now. Because I want to eat it just as much as the next person. But, I can't.
No, that is. And if they can't respect that, then that's pretty crappy. Quick question. So I love to have this podcast be as valuable as possible as well. So if somebody is dealing with some type of IBS or more than likely IBS, what are a few tips that you could have for them in order to, what have you noticed has worked the best? I mean, you don't have to go too much detail, but just that they can apply.
So typically when you start having digestive issues, a lot of times gastroenterologists will tell you to do a food map diet, where you basically eliminate a ton of things and see how it affects you. So my personal recommendation is to do that before you even go to a gastro specialist and come there prepared, because you can easily cut out dairy, you can cut out gluten, you can cut out which is really rare, by the way. A lot of people think that they're gluten intolerant and they're really not. But you can do all these things or cut out acidic foods. There's a lot of trigger foods, spicy, lactose, greasy, all those types of things. You can cut those out and see if that affects your digestion. If it doesn't, then you can go in prepared and show the doctor, which I have found has been the best way to go. So they don't just think they're going to give you the very base treatment. They're going to say, okay, cut out dairy, come back. Then you're going to cut out dairy, you're going to go back, and they're going to say, okay, cut out this. So you're going to waste a lot of time. So if you do that before you go to the doctor and you go in there prepared and you say, hey, I've tried this, and this, I still have these stomach problems. Now we can kind of get into more of the testing. You may have to have an endoscopy, which is not fun, a colonoscopy, which is not fun. All these things, blood test. I mean, it's the worst. I'm not even going to lie to you people. It's the worst. But it's necessary to know what's actually going on. So for me personally, I think if you're struggling with some digestive issues, start cutting some things out and taking notes. I mean, I literally have an app on my phone for IBS where I can know if I have some type of flare up, I go in and I take notes on the app, and I know like, okay, something happened today that may have triggered this flare up or whatever the case may be. And then I can look back on those foods I ate during the day, the stress levels, things like that. So you kind of have to do a trial and error because everybody's so different, but just eliminating things, you know, your stress levels also have
It's huge.
yeah,
Goodness
people
gracious.
don't realize. Yeah.
Yeah,
Your
I don't
stress
know how
levels,
much.
your cortisol levels.
I don't know how many times like this is gonna be like super graphic, but like I've had moments of like where I'm super stressed out and like I won't be able to go to the bathroom like really well for like 2 days. And then
Yeah.
like I'll have a good night's sleep and like that thing I was supposed to be done with is done. And then like I'm good. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like it makes
And
all the difference in the world. Like
yeah, and it affects people differently too because like I'm the opposite of that. Like my stomach gets a mess when I'm stressed and I won't be
yeah.
able to eat. Like running to the bathroom every 5 seconds is the worst. So it just depends, you know, on the person and how they their body, you know, processes things. So I would just definitely take into consideration you know, foods that may upset your stomach and take notes, take as much information as you can to the doctor before you go. And then once you have tests done, obviously take the doctor's advice, whatever he tells you to do. But for me personally with IBS and a lot of people that I know who have these stomach issues, it's kind of similar in the sense where anything really greasy, like high fat content oils, like something like pizza, for example, and really high sodium, and anything that the body needs more enzymes to break down is typically something that I avoid. And that's kind of the general consensus with IBS. So anything that requires the body to work extra hard to digest it, we don't even have that to start with. So it becomes even more difficult. So
Yeah, and that might be raw vegetables too, guys. So like
yes.
another one to be careful with that. So like that's what I've noticed is if you're gonna have something, make sure it's sauteed, it's soft, it's
Cooked. Yes.
cooked. Yes, like don't
Those raw vegetables.
they'll crush you. So
Horrible. I found recently raw carrots. I didn't know that was a thing. And so this happened like a couple months ago. And my boyfriend kind of like didn't really know a lot about the GI issues until it started happening when I moved in with him. And I remember one night when I ate carrots, I literally looked like I was 5 months pregnant. And he was like, "What is wrong with you?" I'm like, "I don't know." And he's like, "You really weren't kidding. You really get bloated." Because you know how girls are. We're like, "Oh, I'm so bloated." But then he's like, "Oh my God." He was like, "I've never seen anything like this.
We're having a baby."
Yeah, seriously. He was like, "What the heck is going on?" I'm like, "It hurts so bad." So yeah, raw veggies, no good for me either.
Gives you a little jab to the stomach, like, like it's like, oh no.
So painful, yeah.
That's interesting. So like I think the biggest thing too is I think everybody listening, like whether you have IBS or not, like think about how food makes you feel. I think there's two different things you can think of. Okay, how did this food digest and how did it make me feel an hour after I ate it? I think if you had a notebook and you did that for a week and you started eating and after every single meal you understood how each thing made you feel. And that's the same thing with like if some people have some people with artificial sweeteners, it bothers them. Some people with non-artificial sweeteners, it bothers them. So like it's just constantly being aware of it. So like aspartame like gives me terrible headaches, so I don't take it in whatsoever. Sucralose every once in a while is fine for me. It doesn't mess with me, but I make sure, and most of the time it's a stevia. Erythritol in large amounts will destroy me.
Oh,
and
sugar alcohols for me, the erythritol. Oh, I cannot eat that. That's one of the things that bloats me so bad.
yeah. And too much gum for me, too much maltitol, which is in gum, it makes me bloated. It gives me like a lot of air in my stomach. And I always thought like whenever I traveled, like whenever I'm on a plane and stuff, I like chew gum. And I always thought it was just the cabin pressure. But in reality, I did a thing where I was like, I'm just going to chew like a few pieces of gum when I'm not on a plane and see how I feel. And I got just as bloated. And I was like, whoa, I was like, this is super interesting. And so it's, yes, you do get bloating whenever you travel and you're in the compress of the cabin of a plane, but it's the maltitol too can be doing that. So just, there's nothing inherently good or bad. It's just what's good or bad for you guys. Like, think about these foods and constantly ask yourself, if you don't feel good, then there's something wrong.
Right.
It's not your body. That's a response from your body telling you that something, that's a biomarker. That's telling you that this does not sit very well, and that's probably not something you should be eating. So
And
just
it
think
also
about that.
like it also gives you the chance to like get to know your body. Like, as like you were saying, trying to turn something into, you know, a bad situation to a good situation. Having IBS is not good. It's not fun, trust me, but it has, on the positive side, allowed me to really become in tune with my body to the point where, you know, for some people, they're like, I can't control myself when it comes to pizza or something. I'm like, listen, if you felt like me after you ate pizza, you can do anything. You could control yourself, you know, and so I kind of try to make it into a positive, like, all right, well, I can't eat pizza, but I can make my own pizza that's less sodium and less greasy, and I can feel really good eating it. So there's positives to it. I've discovered alternatives that taste really good and are macro-friendly. So you just got to do what you can do, the best you can do, right?
There you go. That's all you can do. Make the most. Stop focusing on what you can't have. Focus on what you can have. That's like life lesson number freaking one.
Yes.
Like, focus on being grateful for the things you have rather than dwelling on the things you do not. Go to another country, and this is something that we're, as a team at FDL, working on a foundation, an official FDL foundation that is going to be one of the things that we do is focusing on helping underprivileged kids in other countries as well as kids in this country understand, they'll put them in a better position to succeed. So with kids in another country, give another one of these kids a pencil. Give them a pencil and see how happy they will get. You've looked like you've given them the world. Yeah. And give a kid a pencil nowadays, and they'll be like, well, why isn't it mechanical? Like, what? Like,
yeah.
it's just different. It's a difference of where we are. So we got to focus on what we do have rather than what we don't.
And I think, too, you can apply that to so many areas of your life. And that's one thing that I really have been learning the older I get, because there's always going to be something wrong. There's always relationships, family, work, whatever. The grass is not always greener on the other side. So whatever you have, if you can work to make it better, or if you, no, obviously it's not for everything, but something that I've been practicing is, instead of being like, well, this sucks, so I'm going to not do this, I'm going to just move on. It's like, well, how could I make that better? How could I make it so that doesn't suck? And I think that's really important, like for your attitude, no matter if it's training, boyfriend, girlfriend, family, whatever. How can you help to make sure that you've given this your best effort? Even if it doesn't work out, you've given it your best effort. You tried your hardest to make that not suck. And then you learn from it. So I don't know, that's just kind of like where I've been at the last couple of weeks too. I've really been learning that a lot in my life.
I think that's where everybody should be, because that's how you're going to find your tribe of people that really love you.
Yes.
You can relate most to them. Like,
for sure.
For example, about a year ago, I figured out that why I was having so many issues structurally, I was having a ton of imbalances. And I never realized that from my elbow down, my right arm is 3 inches longer than my left.
Is it really?
Literally from the elbow down, it's 3 inches exactly longer. And so I was wondering, whenever I did any barbell movement, whenever I did anything that relied both arms working at the same time on a fixed plane, so like that, or if I ever did a back squat, why one arm felt like tighter than the other, or whenever I did anything, or why when I deadlifted, one side of my one side would get I would get more sore on one side than the other.
That's so funny.
I was wondering, it's like anything that relied my arms to be holding anything that the barbell was connected, I would get an imbalance. So I can't barbell deadlift anymore. I can't barbell bench press anymore. I can't really do a back squat. I can only do a front squat with the bar like this. I can't do it like this because one is longer than the other. Like, you can kind of see it right here. The right is further than the left. Like,
so, I can see it. That's funny.
Yeah, it's like whenever I have my hands to my side, like, it's bad. You can really see it, and I never noticed it. And it caused so many different issues. So now when I go to the gym, it's mostly dumbbell movements. I can't really do anything that doesn't let one arm like move freely. Anything's in a fixed plane of motion. So
interesting.
yeah, it makes it tough. So, but it's good. Like I make the most of it. Like it is
Right.
what it is. Like, and that's
Yes.
all you can do. And so this kind of moves on to, so you train mostly weightlifting, CrossFit. Where did what made you start training? When did you start training, and when did that become an aspect in your life?
I started in 2014 was when I first discovered what CrossFit was. And
That was your first stimulus into training?
Yes. I never played sports. I was a dancer because of theater. So I wasn't not like, I guess you could say I was kind of athletic. I wasn't like, completely sedentary, but I definitely was not strong by any means. And so I saw CrossFit and I really wanted to try it. And I just remember, like, I tell people this all the time too that ask about like they're nervous to start CrossFit. I pulled into the CrossFit parking lot 3 times and I left every time. Like I would pull in and I saw all these people that were super jacked and with their shirts off and they looked so fit, and I was like 95 pounds. I was so small. And I was like, I'm too scared. And I just left. I did that 3 times before I went to the gym. Finally, I went in, I joined that first gym, and then I just fell in love with CrossFit. And then after like that first year, my coach at the time was like, you really have a lot of potential in Olympic weightlifting. Let's start you on an Olympic weightlifting cycle. So we did. I started competing and then found out I was good at Olympic weightlifting. So it kind of transitioned into weightlifting. Now I do a mix of both, like depending on the time of the year, because I still have my heart for both things. I can't just be a weightlifter, but I also can't just be CrossFit. So I do both of them and I love it. And so I love CrossFit and weightlifting so much.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I mean, that's the biggest thing, guys. Like if it's bodybuilding, if it's freaking walking for long distances, it's whatever you want to do, just move, guys.
Yeah.
Like we live in a world where you need to move. We live in a world where we don't really have to move much. But in order for us to be healthy, I just need everybody to move. Like that is the one common denominator, whether it's weightlifting, CrossFit, anything you want to do, just make sure you're moving and you're moving well.
And you're moving with what you love to do. Like
yes.
That's the biggest thing. If you don't love what you're doing, and obviously no one's going to love it every single day. We're going to have good days and bad days. But if you don't genuinely enjoy or you're not having fun, it's going to be much more difficult for you to continue on that journey.
Absolutely. Like 100,000%. So now you are, what's your role with Black Iron?
I'm a nutrition coach with Black Iron Nutrition.
Okay, so Black Iron Nutrition is, so you guys know Christy May from episode 3 or 4, arguably one of my most powerful episodes I've ever done. It was unreal. Everybody was in tears, but
I love Christy.
She's just an amazing leader. Talk about being vulnerable. But so you are a nutrition coach with them, doing super well, helping people transitioned into flexible dieting, kissing your dogs on the lips. You guys are watching on the video.
He just popped up to say hi.
I know, right? Look at the pup. So what's your favorite part about coaching?
Oh my gosh, I love coaching. I love helping people. I wish these people could see this right now.
I know. You're just getting loved.
I love helping people. Like, there is nothing more like rewarding to me than when I log in and I'm talking with somebody, and whether it's, some people have aesthetic goals, some people have goals where they don't want to feel negative about food or they don't want to feel negative about themselves. And so my whole thing is I want people to know that they're capable of doing what they want to do. And I just try to help them get there. And I try to do it in the most supportive, healthy, balanced way possible. And sometimes people will tell me like, Manders, you've changed my entire thought process on food. And I came from, completely restricting myself and starving and not eating anywhere near enough. And now, with you, I eat so much more and I've progressed so much and I don't fear eating carbs. And that's just kind of like, that's my why. I just want to help people because the fitness industry is one that's saturated with so much misinformation and so much crap, honestly. And people who don't know, they get fed this information and they think that that's the only way to be, or that's the only thing that's true. And so I just try to be kind of like what I said earlier about wanting to be different on Instagram. That was kind of my thing with coaching, is I never starve my clients. I teach them. Like, my whole entire thing is teaching people and helping them be the best version of them that they can be, and knowing like why they're doing what they're doing and how to eat enough to support their goals, or whether it's fat loss or muscle gain, whatever their goals are. I want to educate them and show them that they don't have to starve themselves. There's no magic pill. They don't have to take fat burners. They don't have to use waist trainers. Like, we're just going to go on science and the human body, and helping, like, I don't want to say fix because I'm not a doctor, but helping mend these broken relationships that people have with food and their bodies is like unexplainable how much it means to me, especially being a girl myself, because I know how it feels to be, insecure or not like what you see in the mirror. So it's so rewarding. I love it. I can't tell you enough how much I love it.
You can literally change the trajectory of somebody's life. Like, yeah. And whenever you say teaching them, it comes back to the principle: education drives compliance. So if you're a coach and you're coaching somebody and they ask you, Zach, what about intermittent fasting? Zach, what about vegan? Zach or Amanda, what do they think about this? What do they think about that? It's your goal as a coach to teach them why those diets actually work.
Yes.
Why do they work? But why am I having you hit your macros instead of having you focus on that? It's like, well, those are tools. Macros are the overarching goals. And so however you want to hit your macros, there should be a focus on understanding when your meal timing is. That goes into intermittent fasting, whether or not you want to eat in a smaller window. Then if vegan, okay, that goes down to a moral issue. The only benefit of going vegan is if you're going to be eating because you don't want to hurt animals and things like that. Like, there's nothing more beneficial. And so if you can educate your clients, then they buy in, and then they start trying to teach other people about it.
Right. And that's just the best feeling to know that I've worked with so many different types of people over the years. And, some of my favorite clients are the people who literally have known absolutely nothing about nutrition. Like, they came from, their parents just fed them fast food their whole life, and they become severely overweight, and they don't know anything about the makeup of nutrition of foods, and so teaching someone the basics, but they end up, I have a client actually who's like 65 years old, and he is one of my just all-time favorite people to talk with, because he didn't even know what the app MyFitnessPal was. He's in a different generation, and he never had that nutritional education when he was younger. Now he's 65, and his whole goal was to be able to do these races and be lighter. And he, bless his heart, he works so hard every single week, and he loses the weight every week. And it's so awesome, because he's learning this whole new lifestyle. And he's like, my doctor says that I don't need to be on insulin anymore, which is like the greatest feeling ever for me, because I'm like, yes, we're accomplishing that, like so
that's
many different.
Real. That's the real thing right there.
It's so awesome. Not only just healthy, like choices food wise, but he's changing his body. Like, he doesn't need insulin anymore. He had type 2 diabetes, whatever. And he's just he's 65 years old, and he's making these awesome changes in his life. And I'm like, if you can do it, anybody can do it. And it just, to be a part of that is so cool to see. So I love the whole thing.
And anybody listening or watching, you can tell like 100% you love it so much.
I do. It's funny that you mentioned Chrissy, because the other day, so Chrissy hired me last year, and it was like the best day of my entire life, because I've known Chrissy for years. She did my macros when I first started. She taught me so much, before I went to school, and now I'm in the probably have another like 2.5 more years before I can finish my master's in dietetics. But she taught me so much. And when she asked me to work for her, I was like, this is the best day of my entire life. Like, I love her so much. And so I called her the other day, and I was like, Chrissy, I just have to tell you that, like, I wake up every single morning, and I love what I do. I love helping people. And it was,
oh my God, I can just picture her. She
was crying. We were both crying. Yes. She was crying. I was crying. I was like, I love you, and I love this job. Like, I am so blessed, because I know what it's like. I did a job. I wanted to be in law enforcement for the rest of my life. That's what I thought I was going to do. You know that. And I hated it. It was the worst I was miserable. I was a miserable human being, and no amount of money can make that okay. So when I left and just took a chance, now I think to myself, like, I am so blessed. I wake up every day and I'm like, I love this job. I love helping people. Cool. And it wouldn't be possible without Chrissy, but you know, I took that chance to not go through the law enforcement. And, you know, I was working there for 6 years and I was like, this job is not for me. I'm not happy. And now I am. And it's like, what more could you ask for? Yeah.
That's so cool. That's the best feeling in the world. Like that's what I want for everybody.
Yeah.
To literally be able to tell the story and write the story that they want to write.
Yes.
Like in the sense of like, that's what living your life is all about. Like it's and yes. Most of us do believe that there is an afterlife. There is heaven. There are these things. But if you were to treat this life in the sense of like, if you do believe in God, that God has blessed you with these tools to cultivate in order to say thank you for what you were blessed with. And if you're living and doing a job that you absolutely hate, like think about how you can change that. Like stop buying freaking a nice car and a house that all you do is drive your car to your job and then drive your car home. And only sleep in the house that you're paying for, and you're working a job just to pay for those things. Like
it's a vicious circle.
It's vicious. And stop buying things. Like stop buying Yeezys. Stop buying all these freaking expensive things. Like just start saving your money, because you're gonna build a leeway into where we're like, and start doing things on the side. Like just provide value. Start asking your friends, what value do I provide? Besides like friendship, like what am I really good at that you think I'm good at? And then start trying to do that for more people. And then before you know it, and start sharing it on social. And then before you know it, you have people coming to you as an expert.
That's exactly what I did.
That's it. Like it's that simple. Like there's nothing magical. I didn't do anything different than anybody else. I literally started sharing my food on what I was eating and the recipes I was making because I selfishly wanted recipes for myself. And so I started sharing those. Then people asked me for a recipe book. I had no idea how to make a recipe book. So I searched Google. How do you make a recipe book? I downloaded a plugin. I built my first recipe book. It was a piece of crap, but it got the job done. It got the momentum going. And then fast forward, we are where we are today, about 2.5, 3 years later. And I'm living a life that I could have never, ever, ever imagined.
Yeah, we do kind of have similar stories in that aspect. Actually, we really do. We went through a lot of the same things like that. When we were like, I'm not happy doing this and I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. So I'm going to take a chance and do that. I used to calculate my friends' macros for free. Like my first 10 clients were in my notebook for like $5. And I was like, here's your macros.
$5. That's so cool.
Right?
That's so cool. Yeah. That's how you know it's real though. Like if you were willing to do something for $5 or for free, that should tell you that this is an opportunity for you to do that for the rest of your life. Yeah. Like think of your hobbies, guys. Think of what you do for fun. There's a way to turn them all into businesses. Like there's no way in hell you should be doing something you don't love. Like
I know.
Like think about how you can turn your hobby into something that is not selfish. It's a way to provide more value to other people. That's how businesses are actually started.
Yep, absolutely. You're right,
so
dude.
Cool. So cool.
I wish I could give him a big hug right now. I feel like
I know. It's been a long I don't know. Like I mean, I haven't seen you since
the CrossFit Games.
Yes, that was so long ago. I'm trying to think of when's the next time I'm going to see you. Maybe the CrossFit Games this year. Are you going to come?
I don't know. I don't like that they put them back in Madison.
Me and John are staying together. We'll have a spot for you if you want to stay.
Oh, for real? That would be some fun vlogs right there.
Yeah.
I love him. He's so great.
He's amazing. He's talk about a good soul. He's just like
I know.
He's naive. Like he's naive in the sense of how nice he is. Like
the nicest, one of the nicest people I have ever met in my entire life.
I know. I love that kid. I was just in San Diego and we hung out for a little bit and we filmed a few videos. But he's a good dude. Super good guy. I mean, that's somebody that just provides value and doesn't ask for enough in return.
Yeah, for sure.
It's crazy. But we're wrapping up towards the end of the podcast, and I just want to take a second to say that I appreciate you, Amanda. This is like This is cool. Like I've always been a huge fan of the fact that you are unapologetically yourself. You're
Thank
somebody
you.
that I smile whenever I look at your content on a daily basis.
You always
So
comment some stuff too. You're always in the DMs.
I always slide in there and try to give like a little sly comment or something like that.
Always.
Always. I mean, this is what I do, but
I know. We've been doing that for a long time
yeah,
though.
I know. It's been a long time, but I'm fine. I'm happy you're on the podcast, and I just want to say thank you
Thank you.
for everything you've done. I mean, there's anytime we do anything together, people are like freaking out, like, "Oh my gosh!" I don't know how many times this is gonna like. I hope this doesn't make it awkward, but I don't know how many times
Yes,
I've been
I know
told,
exactly
like,
what you're gonna say.
"So when are you and Amanda gonna start dating?" Like, what? I'm like,
Remember we did that video last year? Everybody said that.
yeah. So
So
it's
funny.
been a long time coming. I just admire you as a person, and it's
Oh, thank you.
it's not a
Appreciate
surprise that Chrissy wanted you to be a part of that team because you fit
that.
perfectly with
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah, of course, 100%. So this is going to lead into the final question, though. So
Okay.
today is your funeral. I know that's kind of a weird thought, but it's there are thousands upon thousands of people there to mourn the loss, but also celebrate your life. And there's somebody on stage about to give your eulogy. You have no idea whether they just followed you on Instagram, maybe you coached them, maybe you met them 5 times, or you've known them your whole life. What is the life that you, Amanda, would want to live to where their eulogy would sound like what?
Oh, wow, that might be the most deep question I think anyone's ever asked me. Oh my gosh, I would hope that my eulogy would sound like a person who, like you said, was unapologetically themselves and who truly cared about other people and helping making the world a better place in any type of aspect that I had any control over. And I just would want people to, when they see me, whether it's in person or via Instagram or YouTube, whatever, I really hope that they see that I want other people to live their own happy life as well, and that I bring them some form of positivity and laughter and enjoyment. And I kind of just want to be like a ray of sunshine for people. I want people to feel like they can laugh around me and I'm going to help make them have a better day. And just that I want them to be the best version that they can be. I don't want to drain people. I don't want to be one of those people who people don't like to be around. So I think the most important thing that I just want people to think is that they can be themselves too, and that like I'm gonna love you no matter what, because I'm just as much as a weirdo and I'm sure as hell proud of it. So I want other people to be unapologetically themselves as well and know that it's okay to be that way, and people are gonna love you no matter what.
It's so true. It's so true, guys. Like, just be yourself. You are going, just be yourself, but be a positive version of yourself. Don't, like, we attract what we put out. If you put out things that are focused on helping others, making yourself better, always put a positive spin on anything that you're going through.
Absolutely.
If you're going through something tough, always say that you are working on this and you're going to get better. It's going to be better. Set that vision that you already know things are going to be better. Always give people the light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. And I guarantee you're going to attract and you're going to help so many freaking people. So thank you so much, Amanda. This was really, really cool.
Yay. Thank you so much for having me. This is definitely like the best podcast I've ever been on. It was so great.
Absolutely. Yeah, we don't really talk about nutrition on this one.
No, I love it.
Just like I promised you. I promised you
yes.
would. And so
Fantastic.
Thank you guys so much. Like, obviously, check out Simply Mander on Instagram, on YouTube, and go show her some love because she definitely deserves it. And thank you guys so much for listening and tuning in week after week, podcast after podcast. We're just trying to change your mind and change you into the person that sees the world as a beautiful place to where you can live your best life. Like, that's what it's all about. So thank you guys so much for listening. God bless, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you, Amanda.